Good morning, Karen from QuantumHeartAwakening. Today, this will be a Divine Feminine check-in. I'm incredibly interested to see where we go today, especially in the juxtaposition of where the masculines were yesterday. Okay, let's see. Okay, divine feminine energy. What is at stake right now? What's at stake is sovereignty. Where is your supreme power over self, over mission, over love, over freedom, over purpose? There's this beautiful grounding. We have this love card in the center of the reading. And I'm drawn to this passion, this flaming heart. You know, we've been talking about for several weeks now, this internal core holy flame. This, I call it something different every time I talk about it, but this ignition of our passion, of our truth, of our voice, of our self-expression in the world. We are becoming trustworthy stewards of this divine light. We've been training for this for lifetimes. We have been training to seed the planet with this light for a very long time. All of our trials and all of our tribulations were divinely timed and planned in order for us to lay the foundations of this work in the world. We came here to redefine relationship paradigms, both within a relationship, within partnership, but also the way we relate as humans to the earthly world around us. We're laying new foundations of bringing the realm of spirit and anchoring it down in the realm of matter. Okay. Divine feminine energy has developed this lovely flow where they can hold very difficult things. They can hold a lot of pain and be in progress with pain while also being in progress with flow and truth and love. There's a really beautiful calibration that has taken place here so that as more darkness rises, feminines can flow with it and join in some sort of collective celebration, collective vibration. We've got recently in the last month or so, we've gotten so many cards about, honoring this play and sovereignty, honoring this celebration, finding your joy, finding your unhinged sparkle, if you will. Divine feminines are integrating this lesson that the more they can flow with adversity and bring their light and joy with them, the more expansion and growth they will have. Okay. For some divine feminines who maybe are not there yet, you're being called to call your power back to you. This is something I say all the time. This is a Carolyn Mace gem that it's just rooted. It's another one of my pillars. You heard me yesterday talking about my pillars of spiritual truth that I get to rely on, that I can lean my foundation on in times when I don't feel grounded. This Carolyn May says this all the time. Call your spirit back from places it doesn't belong. Take command of your energy system. Literally, call your power back. Speak to your power. Say, get back over here. We are learning to develop the language with spirit, the language around, it could be a symbolic language, it could be a verbal language or an impression. We are learning to cut cords to everything that it lies outside of this sacred, holy language. By doing this, we are calling our soul back, specifically our core frequency. When we can call this, hold on. Because we are doing this, because we have the ability to call our soul back from places it doesn't belong, it's instilled in that act is a certain level of mastery. There's a certain level of sovereignty over your vibration. We have this Pillar of Light card again for the Divine Feminines. We are this vessel and we are stewarding. I always use that word, but it just feels like the best word. We are stewarding this vibration in our holy land. We are the Oracle. Yes, you can come to my channel and, flow with these messages, but you also have within you all of the power to access your intuition, which is divinely led, to tap into this divine river flowing within you. Okay, there's another group of divine feminine energy that is still cycling back through a bit of the pain. So yeah, we have this card, this healing card. Healing begins with feeling. Be gentle with yourself and tender with your heart. Something that divine feminine energy, or some divine feminines, are learning right now is that the journey and the work is hard enough. We don't have to pile on the shame, the judgment, and the criticism over how we're navigating the work. This is a really big message. It came up in my private readings and it's coming back up now for the Divine Feminine. Honor where you... Hold on. Yeah, I can't stop staring at that Rebel card. It's like you're being called to rebel against your conventional ways of thinking. And by conventional, it's more than conventional, because when I hear conventional, I think external, but really this is your own internal patterns, your conventional patterns of behavior, of thinking, of analyzing. You're being called to rebel against something that you've kind of always done, and to focus your attention on what could go right. This card says, when you learn to imagine the best case scenario, you get to enjoy an experience twice. That's funny. That's echoing something I said yesterday or a couple days ago about, sometimes we are called to orbit around a situation, and sometimes we are called to stand still so that situation can orbit around us. In that experience, we get to honor this sacred dual nature, right? We get to enjoy the view as the divine witness, and we also get to enjoy the process through empathy, right? We can, through that oneness. This card says your thinking will either make you happiness or take your happiness. You choose. Yeah, there's a call to a higher sovereignty and discernment over your internal world right now. We have this Face Your Fear card in reverse, and because only one card out of this deck came out, I just happened to put it in the middle, but it's not an accident that it's on the Love card. So there's a group of divine feminines here that may be called to face and be accountable for patterns of love. This could be patterns of relationship. This is a very dense excavation to be able to be present and reflect and review on your habits and patterns of relating. Yeah, this could be really intense, and this can bring up a lot of pain and old turmoil. It could also bring up a lot of joy and beautiful times. But as the throne is calling us to something higher, to the highest and best possible interpretation of situations, persons, places, or things. We are being asked to use this key of love, use this key of compassion, to have compassion for the parts of self that did not know better, to unlock the wisdom of those situations, of who you were at that time that you made that choice or did that thing or was in relationship with that person or that job. Yeah, there's a deeper excavation in process. So this message came up in personal readings as well, of where have you been dimming your light to fit in? Oh, I was looking for that card and I couldn't find it. That's because it's been in the unconscious. Or let me ask this, because it's in the unconscious and the general theme. Where in the past have you dimmed your light to fit in? It's time to really rip these memories out by the root so you can understand what led you to that point. And this is different. Okay, I'm being called to discern this. This is very different than speaking woundology. Speaking woundology is being stuck in a trauma cycle where you just can't let go of the victim mentality, where you are just so attached and committed to blame, to highlighting your victimhood. This is very different than going back intentionally to excavate and understand your behaviors, choices, and actions in those moments. This is not the same thing. So don't think for 1 second that going back is somehow setting you back. Sometimes we have to go back, excavate a truth so that it can launch us forward. And by doing this, I mean, think about a garden. When you could just cut all the weeds, right? But they're going to grow back. And sometimes they'll grow back tenfold. So in essence, we are going back to rip these weeds out by the root. So we destroy their power source. We destroy their connection to our core, so that things that we intentionally plant have space and room and the nutrients to grow. So again, where in the past have you dimmed your light to fit in? What was blocking your light? Another word for light is truth. What was blocking your truth? What were you scared to say? What were you scared to see? What were you scared to admit? What were you doing back then? Where were you working? Did you have a job? What was that job like? What was the environment like? Did you notice any patterns between your circumstances and your relationships? For instance, I will give you a personal example. It took me years. I spent about 15, 16 years in clinical nutrition. I worked in inpatient in a hospital. And I noticed that I had unhealthy patterns with authority figures. I noticed that and it took me years to notice this, but I had sort of this very toxic, abusive relationship with one of my bosses. I felt like, and I wasn't a doormat kind of person. I was a very strong person with a loud voice, but for some reason with this one boss, I would sink into this weird old pattern where I was like this person's doormat, and they continued to take advantage of me, and I kind of just took it. And yet I was getting incredible reviews. So it was this weird, very abusive, confusing dynamic where, yes, it was abusive and I was getting positive feedback. It was this awful pattern. And that really sent me into an interesting way of taking inventory of my unconscious patterns of behaviors. I mean, you're at a job, you don't really think, you don't think to look for those things when you're at work trying to accomplish your daily task and trying to be in service to, the people that need you or the tasks at hand. And so it really caught me off guard, like, whoa, I am, interesting that I'm working this pattern out in the workplace. And that was a very liberating experience for me, because once I recognized it, I was able to reclaim a bit of self-esteem and self-confidence, and heal the part of self that was struggling in that pattern. And yes, of course, that pattern showed up once in a while with the people I was in relationships with. However, it was never more clear than for some reason at work. So this isn't only, intimate relationships. This is also any sort of partnerships or alliances that we perceive to be as safe and as something that previously aligned for us. Okay, switching gears. Sorry, let's see, hold on. Okay, this is just like a light message there's some of you that are getting distracted and pulled off your center quite often. There's a really specific message here about healing through music. This could be, something about this music will help you hone your focus. Something about listening to music, dancing, receiving any sort of vibrational healing, sound healing, Reiki healing. There's something here that these modalities, something with frequencies, anything with a vibration or a frequency, this will help you focus and make appropriate aligned discernments that, again, are informed from your intuition. So yeah, when's the last time you've really let yourself drop into music? I talk about this with one of my soul friends all the time. I always talk about high school hangs, like back in high school. And this is, yes, we had phones, but we didn't have smartphones. It was kind of, before that whole thing. And I remember spending hours and hours and hours with my friends in my bedroom, like listening to music. Who'd be laying on the floor, who'd be laying upside down, just hanging out, listening to music. And it's so funny because as adults, we don't really have necessarily the time and space to drop that deep, but there's something about letting that music, it doesn't even matter what kind of music it is. It matters more about how it affects your system and how music and frequencies have the power to unlock these parts, these unconscious parts of self, or even, it's interesting because I talk a lot about the unconscious, and usually in terms of these readings, most of the time it is something dense or shadowy, right? So something in the shadows is something that we are hiding from the light. We are, either ashamed of it or don't want to deal with it or whatever it may be. So they are usually kind of denser things, but we have to remember that something that we also can push into the shadows, our gifts, our talents, these beautiful things. Like sometimes we're too scared to step into our power, so we push it away. So there's something here about allowing music to, like allowing yourself to ride the river of this music healing, this frequency healing, to allow it to give you access to a different flavor of flow that you may have not had in a while, that this will actually hone your focus. It will kind of call your spirit back naturally and reignite the passion within, reignite your focus, reignite your truth, your self-expression, your soul flame. It might ignite a memory of a time where you were powerful, and maybe you haven't had access to that in quite a while. There's also a very specific message here about inviting you to to do a language audit, to take an inventory of the language you're using with self. This card in the unconscious says, the words you speak are an invitation to life, a request to bring energy into form. Choose your words carefully. Yeah, this was what the card was in the unconscious. And then we also have body balance here in the unconscious. You know, we talk about self-care all the time here, and especially reminding you, this is a divine feminine reading. It's very specific. Divine feminines, you do so much of your work happens in the unseen realm. It's energetic, it's emotional. It is thinking, analyzing, excavating truth, excavating discernment over certain situations. And all of this inner work, we have to remember that it does take a toll on our bodies. We have to remember that just because people cannot see the work we are doing, I'm really drawn to this three figures of this woman, but she's covering her eyes. There's something here, again, we close our eyes to open our third eye to give access to divine wisdom. And in closing our eyes to the external world, it could appear to the external world that we're not doing anything, that we're not accomplishing anything, that we have nothing to show for all of our profound hard work. This took me many years to really own and reclaim my gifts. I went off the grid for 3 years. You guys are still getting to know me, but I completely dismantled my life. I was at a retreat in Arizona, a spiritual, sexual, shamanic retreat in Arizona. And in a ritual there, I had a moment and I literally in one moment, I said, okay, I have to move out of my house, sell my house, quit my job, and be alone. And I took 3 years out of my life to do that. And I didn't know why. And that was all very scary for me. I'm like, I bought a house, I renovated it. I was so proud of myself. I was kind of younger when I did it. So it was like a big badge of honor that I accomplished that. And I'm like, why am I going to sell my house? I put so much love and energy into making it exactly how I wanted it. How could I possibly sell my beautiful home and do this and quit my job? You know, it wasn't like one massive life change. It was like 3 or 4 all at once. And this all happened within like 2 weeks of each other. It was very intense. I moved in with my sister, and yeah, it was just this wild ride. And now that I'm coming out of that 3-year portal, I'm realizing what that was about. And for me, I had to reclaim my value system. There's something here about reclaiming how we place value on what is meaningful to us. I'm looking at that focus card in reverse. So much of this society, and there's so many cultural expectations of feminine energy and of women, and yet on top of those expectations, there is not the supportive infrastructure in this patriarchal world to have appropriate values, to have appropriate priorities. There's always some sort of external force that's criticizing how we're doing things or why we're doing these things. And so something that I had to really integrate and embody over these 3 years was dismantling and detaching from this very limited binary value system. Like the first thing of quitting my job, the first thing that rattled my cage was like, oh, who am I if I'm not earning a paycheck? And I had to really dismantle my internal value with money and with a paycheck coming in. And I set myself up financially. I wasn't reckless. I don't recommend doing this. Let me put a huge disclaimer. I'm not saying for anyone to go do this. This is just what Source told me to do. So this might look very different for you, but for me, the Source was showing me all of these binaries that I had picked up along this way. If I'm this, then I'm this, right? If I'm earning a paycheck, then I'm valuable. Then I'm a valuable member of society and I'm worthy of fill in the blank, love, partnership, money, wealth, abundance, whatever, peace, inner fortitude, whatever these things are. And source or the divine kept showing me over and over and over again where I was attached, where I was limited. This took such a toll on my body. Sorry, I'm bringing it back full circle to this body balance card in the unconscious. We have to, as feminine energies, fight to carve out space for ourselves. And who are we fighting? Because this is a loaded question. Who are we fighting? I'm going to give that a minute to breathe. Think about that. Who are we fighting? I spent years in academia, in higher academia, studying women's studies and dismantling systems of oppression and social injustice. And for many years, when I was very young, I was fighting the external world. I was fighting the unjust systems of oppression. I was fighting, and listen to my language, fighting. It was a fight. That was how it felt. And then years of I don't know, I spent probably, let me think, from 2003 to 2016 in women's studies in some capacity. I was an activist focused on maternal health care rights. I went deep down many intense rabbit holes looking to dismantle these systems of injustice within our collective. And then I had my spiritual awakening. So I ask you again, who are we fighting? We are actually fighting the parts of self that are not accepting our truth as truth. We are actually not dismantling external systems of oppression. We are dismantling internal systems of oppression. Yes, we are influenced by the external world, but again, we are being asked to call our spirit back from places it doesn't belong. We will never change the world by spinning our wheels in the external. We have to change the world by changing self. So for me, those 3 years after a very wild 10-year spiritual awakening, let's be real, it's a lifetime, right? We incarnate with all these lessons, and it's intense. It's really intense. Okay, let me reel it in. Hold on. So again, it's facing our fears over our internal infrastructures that no longer serve our truth. Sometimes, and this happened for me, and I honor that I was in a place of privilege. I was single. I didn't have kids. I was financially viable, where I could take this huge chunk of time off to go on this deep vision quest. Sometimes we have to, a very spiritual idea is that we have to go on a walkabout. We have to take our soul on a walkabout to listen deeply to what it's telling us. And why do we have to be alone and isolated? Usually, I'm not saying always, but usually it's because the world around us has gotten so loud and so confident in telling feminine energy what to do, what to look like, who to be, who not to be, what's acceptable behavior, what's an acceptable way to dress, what's not acceptable behavior, what's not acceptable way to dress. They taught us how to hate our bodies and hate things about us, so we invest in buying more products. Like, we have gotten so far away. I just got full body chills as I said that. We have been pulled so far off our center that it takes a bit of intention and power and strength and focus to even identify what is ours and what is other. And if you are a highly sensitive, intuitive, and empathic being, this shit is like times 100, right? Empaths get it the worst. I think empaths bear the brunt of this work because there is no other for an empath. They live and breathe oneness 24/7. And that causes profound suffering because they even understand their abusers. They even understand these systems of, systematic degradation and pain. And there's love for everyone in the face of all this corruption. And so again, let me get off my soapbox for a moment and reground. This was just my experience. I do feel that my experience does have flavors of the universal experience. So as always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But we are going off the grid to reclaim our true core frequency so that we can, without a shadow of a doubt, discern what is in alignment and what is not. We are honing our intuition so that nothing external can pull us away from our truth. Nothing external can convince us otherwise. We are putting our rightful intuition on its rightful throne, on its rightful pedestal, and not letting anything external tell us otherwise or pull us out of center. We are learning to hold our center for love of self and other in all flavors of chaos while never abandoning self and our truth. This is deep, deep, masterful work. We are stepping into mastery each time we confront a situation, including self, with love. Whoa. Okay. Intense, beautiful, beautiful, empowering reading. Let's get some twin flame cards. Divine, what do feminines need to know right now? What would be supportive? What are their obstacles to this divine sovereignty? Okay, we have the Holy Grail code, receive the gift, and we have integration, multidimensional healing. Yeah, so this card here, it feels very much in alignment with this reading. It feels that the divine feminine has spent years doing this work, whether conscious of it or not. We have been, as we step deeper onto this path of self-love and worthiness, we have been confronting these pieces of the world of self, stories, limiting beliefs, fears, false evidence appearing real. And we have slowly been accessing this multi-dimensional healing and doing this integration work. So the feminines that I'm reading here for today have been neck deep in this work for quite some time. Have faith, you are receiving Holy Grail code.